Yes, so hello everyone, hello, good evening. Derrian, you can start recording. Oh, you're on it. Love to see.
Yes, sir.
Um, welcome to Read All About It. We are with our lovely CAU alumna, Jacque Reid. Give it like virtual claps. I'm going to hand it over to my co-moderator, Miranda Perez, to introduce her.
Hello. Hi, Jacque. Nice to meet you, everybody. I am the managing editor of the Panther. As we all know, Kayla's the editor-in-chief, boss babe, runner of it all. And Jacque Reid, of course, is an Emmy Award winning, she's an Emmy Award winner, multimedia maven. On television, she's polling double duty for NBC, hosting 2 lifestyle shows, New York Live in New York City and The Hub Today in Boston. Both shows give audiences a daily dose of celebrity news and interviews, as well as the very best these cities have to offer in fashion, food, and fun. Jacque can also be seen reporting on entertainment and celebrities as part of NBC's red carpet team and in the studio for breaking entertainment news. Podcasting is also a passion of Jacque. She's a co-host of Read This/Read That podcast, along with fellow journalist and dear friend Joy Reid of MSNBC's The Readout. As a vegan, Jacque also hosts the Vegan Sexy Cool podcast, which links existing vegan wellness and social justice. Vegan Sexy Cool is more than a podcast. It is a lifestyle brand that includes a website, vegansexycool.com, a YouTube channel, and committed social media community. As a graduate of Clark Atlanta University and Northwestern University, Jacque began her career in local news and quickly made her way to the national stage as an anchor for CNN of Headline News. Jacque is a member of the National Association of Black Journalists, the Christian Cultural Center Church in Brooklyn, the New York Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and she is a proud vegan and animal rights advocate.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You covered all your bases?
Yes. Yeah, and forgive me for looking out of the corner of my eye, but I'm just keeping an eye on the, so I don't mean to be rude. If you see me looking, I just don't want to miss Georgia coming through for Biden or Pennsylvania.
Yes.
I don't want to miss those moments.
The first time in 30 years.
Right? Oh, I can't hear you.
I muted myself by mistake.
Okay.
You can take it away.
Oh, how are you doing, Miss Reid? My name is Derrian Carter, the president of the National Association of Black Journalists, Clark Atlanta University chapter. I'm also the co-sports editor for the CAU Panther as well.
Nice.
Before we start, I like to ask these questions to almost every speaker that I run into. So can you, because as you know, the pandemic has been wild for almost everyone, or really everyone in the world. So can you name a song, movie, or even book to describe your life during the pandemic and why that choice?
Wait, one of each or just a song or movie or book or?
Yeah, just one.
Oh, to describe my life during the pandemic. That's an interesting question. A song or a movie or a book. That's tough because it's been so many things. You know what I mean? I mean, with the pandemic being what it was in the beginning, right? So much fear,
right?
And so much uncertainty, just not knowing, right? And then, you know, it's like I think about The Walking Dead, which is the television show that I love, and just kind of preparing, like me. You know, I went out and bought this big freezer and like put it in the garage and filled it, like I was preparing, you know, stocking up on all kinds of things, even toilet paper. I didn't go crazy with the toilet paper, but just kind of stocking up on so many things. But then when George Floyd happened, right, in the midst of the pandemic, then my focus shifted, not completely. It's not like I forgot about the pandemic and the threat that caused, but then it shifted into this, you know, this need to really focus on activism. And so there was like this Selma kind of, you know, kind of moment that just rose up in me. You know, so there's that. And then I would think, you know, mentally, I really had to get a hold of myself because mentally I really went through a lot. And thank God for my therapist, who really helped me really navigate how I responded to everything that was going on, right? And then I think that with the help of my therapist, I realized that I really needed to step away from paying. I'm such a news junkie, right? Like I'm like, what? I have been watching the TV nonstop. I mean, I haven't gotten much sleep just because I just don't want to miss anything. I want to see how everything unfolds. So with the help of my therapist, I was like, okay, I got to focus on my wellness, right? I need to walk in the morning. I need to do breathing exercises. I need to meditate. I need to lean into my yoga. So it really became about wellness. And there's this song by Layla Hathaway, who is my favorite musical artist, period. There's a song by her from her, I'm watching my dogs, from my second album, from her second album called Breathe. And it really is just kind of talking about, like, you got to remember to breathe. Everything's going to be okay. You know, we're going through tough times, but you just got to remember it's going to be all right in the end. So that's like where I am now. Now with Trump and everything, and what this election really revealed to me about this country, because and how this country really is clinging, so many in this country, but this country as a whole, you know, is clinging to racism. Even though with George Floyd, I think white people discovered what Black people knew all along, right? That racism is alive and well in the United States. So there was like this awakening with white people, this whole, you know, oh my God, there's racism. Black people are being treated unfairly, like everywhere. It was like this whole thing. But I think once everybody put up their Black squares and they were participating in marches and saying we take responsibility, and white people were really trying to say, hey, how can we change this? I want to be better. And they're crying and doing all that kind of stuff. Months later, right? Where is all the we care about this, where Black people are still dying, you know, police brutality still persists. And then we see these numbers, right? We see that with everything that Donald Trump stands for, that this is a close race, right? That they are neck and neck. How is this even a contest? And so I think I'm kind of moving back into the activism phase, but I'm hanging on to my wellness and remembering to breathe and remembering to self-care and take care of myself as I focus on those things that I'm passionate about. So it's a lot. It's hard to narrow it down to just one. You know what I mean?
That's so crazy that you mentioned The Walking Dead, because I definitely just started binge watching that series after I finished
good, right?
It's so good.
And it's not even about the zombies. I tell everybody, it's not about that. It's about humanity. It's about the people, right?
Yeah.
But I tell, when I interview people from that show, especially now during the pandemic, I used to say before the pandemic, I was like, if anything like this ever goes down, I'm going to be ready, because I watched The Walking Dead. I know how to prepare.
Right. So, like you mentioned, right now our nation is kind of divided, especially with the election right now, and it's like literally split through the middle, and it's so close. So
Yes.
what do you think are the next steps for African American people and people of color to take, regardless of whoever wins the election?
Yeah, I don't think it matters who wins. I think that now, you know, one of the things that irritated me towards the last months of the election were when people like P. Diddy, for example, who has every right to speak out because he's a citizen, right? He has every right to speak out about politics, but was demanding that Biden do this and do that. Let's have a meeting with us. Listen, we have time for all that. Where were you, you know, months ago? Where were you 2 years ago when all these people were throwing their hat in the ring for this thing? So now I say, now is the time for Black people to think about all those things that they wanted Biden, the Biden camp, to pay attention to. Now's the time to focus on those things. I think that as a community, even though we're not, you know, a monolithic group, we do have to find a way to be more cohesive politically, you know, because we have such power in our unity, you know, way back to the times of slavery. And then, you know, beyond that, white people just what they did to us treated us to go in different directions and not trust each other and not work together. You know, look at how Asian people in the United States, you know, in different, you know, whether it's Koreans, Japanese, Chinese, work together within their community, right, to build things. You know, look at how the Jewish people work together to build things, and so on and so forth. Black people, you know, and listen, it's not our faults, right? We like slavery, Jim Crow, all of that, you know, all of that. It was designed to separate us and to keep us from learning, educating ourselves, learning how to read, learning how to write. I mean, just from all of that. So it's a long road to getting to a place where we're unified. But I think we need to learn how to economically and politically come together in a better way. We have to figure out who our leaders are, what we want to lean into. And we've got to, you know, one of the things that I loved more than anything during this pandemic and with the whole Black Lives Matter and the racial reckoning that was happening was what was happening with the WNBA and with the NBA, right? Look at the power that they had. I think that they both should have done more with that. But you know, I'm not walking in their shoes, so I don't understand totality of what, you know, they're faced with about, you know, walking away from, you know, doing what they love. I think that but I think they showed the potential of what we could do, right? The power that we have, not just in sports and entertainment, but economically, right? We have tremendous buying power. Daytime television is dominated by Black people. Like, we're the ones that really watch it, even though networks and you know, advertisers cater to others. We're the ones that really you know, dominate that as far as, you know, the numbers. So I think that we have to figure out how to come together and collectively make change. You know, all the, you know, it's beyond police brutality, right? Beyond defunding the police, we have to look at what's going on in higher education. You know, we have to look at what's going on, you know, in our elementary schools, high schools, with those kids, just with education in general. We have to look at housing, what's going on, like the Asian man who worked for, I think it was in San Francisco, who was saying they caught him on camera saying to these young Black men that this was a no N-word zone. And they were out there trying to shoot a video. And this is an Asian man who worked for one of the most prestigious real estate agencies in the country, right? And that's who's working for that. So when it comes to housing and real estate and all of that kind of stuff, when it comes to banking, you know, when it comes to entertainment, Broadway, ownership in sports, these are the kind of things that we need to start looking at. We need to figure out how to lift up the ones of us who are suffering in poverty. We have to figure out how to, you know, strengthen and build upon our middle class, bring more people up to the middle class. And all these things relate to politics. They relate to voting. It relates to who's in office, right? Who are the community organizers? And I think that we, you know, I don't know the answers of the how to, but I think that that's what we need to figure out how to do. And now is the time. It doesn't even matter, you know, who wins, if it's Biden or Trump. We have got to figure this out. We have got to figure out how to come together when it comes to these things.
Beautiful. And I know one thing that you touched on too that's so important is like higher education and like the access to higher education. When you were at Clark, outside of becoming a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, what other organizations did you join here that you feel as though contributed to your career and just your liveliness post-graduation as a Black woman?
Well, I did not pledge at Clark. I pledged in a graduate chapter here in New York once I moved to New York. But Clark has such a wonderful chapter there, wonderful, amazing women, dynamic women there. But I really, you know, once I got to Clark, I transferred there. So I got there like my junior year. So I really didn't have time to be involved in anything but my major. And it's funny because I thought that I wanted to be a print journalist. And so I was the managing editor of the newspaper, the Panther. And I did, right. I was, I did all these things. I was, Mr. McJunkins. I learned so much from him. I was involved in NABJ, and we would do, I learned so much at Clark about being a journalist. And then I went to this summer program after my junior year that Northwestern University sponsored for Black students, and it was in Washington, D.C. And I did that. It was 6 weeks that we were there in this amazing program. We stayed at George Washington University. It was a game changer for me, the summer program. And from there, I had a 2-week internship at a newspaper in Prince George's County, Maryland. And I have to tell you, with everything that I learned, I had some, front page stories, above the fold. I really had a great experience there, but I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy being a print reporter, and it surprised me. So I said to myself, you know what? I might need to lean into broadcast. So I'm going into my senior year, right? And I have not taken one broadcasting class. So I was like, okay, let me get an internship at WCLK. I got that. And I started just doing things with the television station there. And I was just doing everything that I could, staying up late at night. I was still working on the newspaper, but then I was also doing stuff with like the TV kids. I started hanging out with them and just trying to learn how to edit, learn how to do all these things before I graduated, right? And I remember there was a reporter that came there from WSB who came to talk to our class. And I asked her if I could go and shadow her for the day. And she was like, you know what? We're not supposed to do this, but we're going to say you're my cousin and just come on. And so I went, and she was a weekend anchor and a weekday reporter. And I was with her during the week, one day during the week. And I went and hung out with her for the entire day. And I got to see how she, did interviews, put together stories, their live shots, all that kind of stuff. I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. But I was glad I had that experience with the internship. And I spent the day with her to help me decide what I wanted to do. And then when it was time for me to graduate, I tried to put together this resume tape, which was horrible because I really did not have enough experience in front of the camera to get a job. So I would send out this tape. It was so bad. Oh my God, it was so bad. I could not get a job. And so I said, you know what? Let me go to graduate school. Let me go to graduate school, major in broadcast and get what I need to learn how to. That is why I ended up going to Northwestern. And thank God I went to that. I didn't even apply anywhere else. It was because I went to that program, the summer program, as an undergraduate, that I even knew the strength of Medill, the School of Journalism. And so I applied, and I got accepted, and I was off to Evansville, Illinois, and then Chicago. But so back to your question, I didn't really have time to join any organizations. I was all about just trying to get myself together so that I could get a job, especially because in midstream, I was like, you know what, I want to do broadcast. I didn't have time for all that. But not that you should not. You definitely, extracurricular activities are important. But I just did not have time to lean into that stuff at where I was when I got there.
So you came in here junior year. You're a graduate of our illustrious university, obviously. And obviously, like you said, after you graduated Clark, you went on to become a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, which is another huge part of HBCU culture. So I wanted to know if you can talk about both of those experiences and how they impacted your life. Like, what lessons did you learn from those both experiences?
From graduating from Clark and being a member of Delta Sigma Theta. So.
Yes.
Graduating from CAU, I realized that there is kind of like, it's funny being a part of a sorority. There is just kind of like this, you're a member of something special for something special for the rest of your life when you go to an HBCU, right? It's just something that you will understand, that other people understand, whether they went to CAU, whether they went to Howard, FAMU, you know, on and on and on. There's just something that we understand about the culture and the experience. And I think that being at Clark taught me that it taught me really how to stand up for myself in this business, right? Because I started out at the University of Georgia and I was just a small fish in a big pond. And once I got to Clark, you know, I had an opportunity to be very hands-on, you know, to get that internship at, you know, WCLK, to be the managing editor of the newspaper. And you know, I remember Mr. McJunkins, you know, getting to know your professors in such a way. You used to have dinners at his house, and you know, it was just it did a lot for my confidence to be able to be in charge in that way. And so when I walk into other spaces now, particularly spaces that are mainstream, right? I carry that confidence with me. You know what I mean? It means something to have graduated from an HBCU. It's a sense of pride that I carry with me everywhere, and I definitely bring it in the room with me. And so, with that experience of that, just like I said, I'm very outspoken. You know, in different spaces, probably too much. Some people would like to think, but I don't think so. You know, I have opinions and I share them, but you learn that. I think it's so important for us to have HBCUs because it prepares you. It prepared me for Northwestern. I mean, Professor Butts and I were at Northwestern together, and we were the first two out of our class. We were the only two Blacks in our class at Northwestern, and we were the first two to get jobs after. We were the first two to land jobs. She was the first and I was the second. And so, you know what I mean? And we carried ourselves in such a way when we were at Northwestern. I mean, thank God we had each other because it wasn't easy, but we excelled. We did really well in that program because of what we got from Clark. So I carry that with me. I'm so grateful that I graduated from Clark, and everything that I learned there, I take with me. I would not be successful today had it not been for that experience. As far as Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, man, let me tell you something. It is so special to be a part of that sisterhood. You know, my mother is a Delta, so I'm a legacy. So I knew, you know what I mean? I knew I wanted to be a member of Delta. It was no question. I didn't look at anything else. And even though, you know, Professor Butts is an AKA, I love her dearly in spite of that. But I wanted to be a member of Delta because of what I saw, not only in my mother and her activism. My mother, even today, you know, before I jumped on this with you guys, she had me up down to the wire for an hour talking about the election and talking about, today she was talking about how Cubans in Florida, you know, were voting for Trump. And she was talking about in the 1950s, what was going on in Cuba and what Obama did. And like, she was just giving me this whole history lesson. I was like, yeah, Mom, I know. But she, you know, my mother is just so civically engaged. And that's what I appreciate about being a part of Delta Sigma Theta. Socially, I absolutely love it. I love my sorors. I love my line sisters. I love getting together and having fun. You know what I mean? There's just this kinship that we have. But beyond that, I love that Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated is about making change. All those things that I talked about earlier that Black people need to be about, Delta Sigma Theta has been about that since 1913. Since 1913, since the suffrage. You know what I mean? Come on. So it's like that was, it was just like home to me because I'm such an activist and I'm so outspoken and I want to see the world change. I mean, someone was asking me, I was on this talk show the night of the election, and it looked like Trump was going to win at that point. You know, that first night, I was like, this is not happening. And we were having a conversation. It was a panel, and they were asking us, who is thinking about or has been thinking about just under Trump moving to another country. And most people on the panel were like, me, right? They were like, yeah, I'm thinking about moving to Canada. I'm thinking about moving to Jamaica and different places. And I said, you know what? I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it because I was born here and I'm going to die here. I said, you know what? It for the most part, not for everybody, if you don't have family in Jamaica, in Toronto, in different places around the world, once you move, it's hard, even if you have the means. But for most people, it kind of takes money, right? And really having your life together in a certain way to move to another country. And so everybody can't go. What about the people who can't go, right? And so if those of us who are activists, who are aware of what's going on to the point that we want to leave, right? And we have the wherewithal to leave, what about the people who can't? What about them? You know what I mean? And I want to stay here and I want to fight. Like I'm ready. This election makes me want to fight even more than before. Hold on, I'm trying to just see if Pennsylvania is now in the blue. I don't know, every more than before. And one thing I love about being a member of Delta is that a lot of what we do together is about activism. I love that. I love that about Delta. I'm so proud of what Delta Sigma Theta stands for. And so it gives me an opportunity to be a part of that in a very organized way with my sisterhood, with an organization that's been around for more than 100 years.
And you touched on it before, to the last question about your matriculation to Northwestern University for grad school, and a decision that affects young journalists exiting undergrad is the decision to go to grad school or not. Can you talk to us about like the rigor between a HBCU and a PWI?
It's like one of the reasons that years ago I had my Reid group there at Clark, where I took students from Clark and brought them to New York for a summer boot camp, right? And I hate that I had to stop, but it was hard for me to continue. And I wanted to do it exclusively with Clark students, but I just did not have the resources to continue to do it by myself. It was just too much. But I wanted to do that because I wanted to make sure that our students, oh no, that's another place. I'm sorry. I'm so distracted because I thought they were calling Pennsylvania. I was like,
You were making me look. I was like, wait, what happened?
I'm sorry. I'm so distracted. But one of the things that I want to make sure that CAU students have access to is real life experience, right? So with that summer program, I had students here in New York 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. They all had internships, right? Tuesdays and Thursdays, they were in workshops with myself and other journalists, just speeches, learning, all kinds of things. We went everywhere. It really was a great program. And someday I hope to continue it in some kind of way. But I started it because I was realizing that interns at other schools like Northwestern would come into a newsroom with all this experience, right? They were getting, Peter Alexander, who covers the White House now, he was an intern when I was in Lexington, Kentucky. By the time Peter was halfway through his internship at our CBS affiliate, he was doing live shots on air as an intern. He was doing live shots. Most HBCUs do not have live shot classes. They don't have social media classes where you guys are not saying all, but a lot of them don't. And then a lot of other schools do. And I get it. Everybody is not able, but that doesn't make the school any worse. What it means is that students just need to make sure that you get the experience that you need so that when you graduate, you can get a job, and that means paying attention. That means it's beyond getting an internship, right? It's what I did with that reporter in Atlanta when I was at Clark, saying to her, she came to the school to speak. I pulled her to the side. I said, hey, Can I come and hang out with you and just see? It means it means staying hungry. It means staying hungry because at other schools, at mainstream schools outside of HBCUs, away from HBCUs, it's a fight. It's just a fight. You're not going to get to be managing editor and editor in chief. You know what I mean? That's going to go to other people. It's going to be rare that a Black student will get those opportunities. And so and so that's the disparity, right? That's the thing right there. So we have to make sure that we are getting and our students are getting the experience that we need, because it's a very different experience. Going to the University of Georgia and then going to Clark, I was able to experience that, but I had my better experience at Clark. I got the strength from Clark. The core of who I am as a journalist, my success as a professional came from Clark.
You can go on ahead and ask the next question, Miranda.
I was waiting for my little transition. So I know you talked about the difference between PWIs and HBCUs and just how that transfers into the workforce and the disparities that we'll face as students graduating. What are some things that you faced in the industry in your career that may have possibly made you want to give up or really question your purpose and your position?
Nothing has really made me want to give up.
Per
But I will have to say that after my experience at BET and anchoring the news there, I realized that there was a need to present Black stories more in the mainstream media. And I get frustrated even with the show that I do now. And I'm constantly speaking up about it to the point of exhaustion, like just mentally, like, oh, I'm just sick of it. And just trying to say, so I realized that when I was at BET, that there needs to be more focus in general on Black stories. There needs to be more care and attention paid to the way that Black people are covered, right? The way that stories from the Black community, the way that there's a lack of experts from the Black community, unless we're talking about Black things, like we don't know about business or international issues, or we don't know about politics and things like that. It's like they bring us in, when all the Black Lives Matter things were going on, there were Black people everywhere, right? But during the election, where are we? There might be one of us, and that person might be there because of Black Lives Matter and everything that happened. But where are we? And so I think the shift that happened for me after working with BET was once I went back to mainstream, I was like, I still want to cover Black news. I still want to focus on those types of things, not just in a way where, with the things that I do, like with Joyanne and our podcast, Read This, Read That, or even Vegan Sexy Cool. A lot of the things that you see me cover there are things that focus on communities of color or business, people of color, or stories of people of color. And that's what I lean into. So that was the shift that happened for me. The realization that I had a responsibility to be a voice and tell these stories in any way, and not be shy about it, not feel guilty about it, because people can make you feel guilty about it when you're in a newsroom. People can shut you down about wanting to cover particular things. I was working for CBS when I was at BET, because we were all part of Viacom and we were in the CBS building. Sometimes I would work for CBS, the CBS Evening News on the weekend, and I would be a reporter there. And I remember, and it was so long ago, I can't remember the name, but there had been a story that was really big in the news about this woman whose husband murdered her, and she was pregnant, and it was a white woman. And I can't remember even the white woman's name, it was so long ago. But then there was a very similar story the weekend that I was working out of Philadelphia, of a Black woman who was pregnant, who was murdered, very possibly by her boyfriend. And I remember a friend of mine was a reporter in Philadelphia. He called me and he was like, hey, this is happening. There's a break in the story. They've arrested the boyfriend, or there was something big that was happening. And so I went to the editor and I said, or the main producer, and I said, hey, I think that we need to do this story. And they were like, it's not enough time today with everything. I was the only Black person there, and they didn't cover the story. And I remember I complained about it to my agent, and I remember one of the editors called me into the office because I worked that Saturday and Sunday the next day, and she was like, well, if I'm sorry that happened. If you really want to cover it, maybe we can do it next weekend. But I ended up not coming back the next weekend, so I never got to cover it, but it was just immediately shut down. And it was the exact same type of story. So I'm very sensitive about those things, but I think there's a responsibility that we have to speak up, to be mindful of how things are covered, of how we are covered in the news, even in entertainment. I think, I take on that responsibility to make sure that we're covered in the right way and that our stories are told and included.
That's a perfect segue into the next question. I want to talk about Black representation in the media. I wanted you to kind of address why it's necessary for Black voices to be represented in the media, and how have your personal experiences influenced the stories that you tell and the way you maneuver throughout the media world?
Well, I mean, it's just like I said, those are the reasons. And it's important for us not just to be in front of the camera, but also behind the camera, not just out, reporting, but also on the, in the editorial room, making those decisions about those kinds of stories, because it matters, right? It matters. It definitely matters. I mean, for me, there's so many situations that I could tell you about where, as a Black woman, I have had to speak out. And there are times, especially now through this whole stretch of this racial, reckoning going on in this country, I'm exhausted by, diversity meetings and don't do that. Sorry, talking to my dog. Don't do that. Diversity meetings and trying to explain to white people, how we should cover things and why we should cover things. I resent that, because you weren't just born yesterday, right? You knew that this was a problem for years. So figure it out. You know what I mean? I will speak up and say what I need to say, but I'm not here to train you on how to cover Black people. I'm not here. That's not my job. Bring someone in to train the white people on how to do that. And so that's the thing. I will speak up when I see things that are wrong, but it's not my job to train people, right? I don't go to work and people teach me how to do my job. So why should I teach you how to do your job? Go and learn, read some books, take some classes, do what you need to do. But that's not on me to learn, there are ways that people can learn how to broaden their minds and how just to think more inclusively when they're covering news. So that's a big part of it, just kind of figuring out how to navigate the waters, because there will be things that people will do and people will say, your colleagues will say, you'll hear things, and you'll have a moment where you'll have to say, am I going to say something this time, or I'm just going to let it go? I encourage you to say something. I encourage you to write it down, to keep a notebook of these things that happen. I encourage you when you're at NABJ, to talk about these things. And I encourage you to find support systems when you get out there professionally, because wherever I have worked, I've always leaned into, other Black people, other Black journalists, you know what I mean, that are in the business. I've always had these tight knit groups in the different cities that I've lived in to just, just commiserate with more than anything, and just connect with, and, just share our experiences and support each other. And some of those people are still my friends today because we just got through it. But I think for me, it's just trying to figure out, like I said, with the whole Black Lives Matter thing, it got to a point where I hit a wall. I was like, I'm not here to teach you. I'm not doing that anymore. So it's just kind of figuring out how you want to navigate those waters. But I encourage you to speak up, to find a way to speak up and watch, keep an eye on things. And, you know, like if you go to a job and once you get hired, you realize you're the only only Black person there, then I think a conversation, something that I wish I had done early on was to sit down with the news director or the general manager and say, hey, I realize I'm the only Black person on air, or the only Black person in the newsroom, or there's only me and this one producer, or me and this one anchor. Like, what's up with that? What's going on with your efforts to hire more people of color? And not feel so grateful to have a job that you don't speak up for yourself. You know what I mean? That's really important that one thing that I really want young people to realize. I hope I answered your question. I know
Yeah, definitely.
so long-winded.
No, I was wondering to follow up on that. So like personally, how do you usually deal with any microaggressions that happen in the workplace?
Usually pretty head on. I'm really just that girl. I just am. I just am. I'm like, wait, you said what? Or what about this? Yeah, I point them out. I talk about them. I definitely do. Because if you don't, then it builds up. It builds up, and then you find yourself in the bathroom talking to somebody who can relate, or talking to somebody at home, a sibling, a friend, and complaining. And then your life just becomes complain, because those things will build resentment in you too. And that gets in the way of you doing your job and living your life. You need to be free of that. And sometimes just, it might be a situation where one thing happens and you're like, okay, and and after a certain number of things happen, then when, you may go and talk to your news director, or you may go and talk to, someone at the local chapter of NAACP, of them and NABJ. And just, but I would definitely point those things out, because they add up, and they do happen all the time. And I don't think that we should let people get away with that. I think we need to identify it for what it is, either in the moment, whether it's with HR and you call it out so it goes on record, or that there is an official meeting with your news director or something. Because I think we get afraid of being seen as like the angry Black person, and I don't want to, I'm just going to get through it and do my job no, I think people need to be called out on that stuff, because then they become more aware of what they're doing, and particularly what they're doing in front of you. I think when you let people know not to play with you, then they don't.
And I was going to say that's really good, because when people make those steps and those strides in the workplace, that's really paving a way for future journalists and future broadcasters. So I do applaud you for speaking up and kind of like shutting that down immediately, because it just paves that way and opens that space for us.
Yeah, I had one of our interns at New York Live. She was a Black girl, one of the few that we've had, and she came to me on the day of her last day at the internship, and she was in tears. And she was like, oh, I just didn't have a great experience. I don't feel like I got, what I wanted out of this experience. And she was just in tears. And I was like, A, why are you coming to me now at your last day? And I said it in a comforting way, because she was really upset. But I said, B, you should have had this you should have had this conversation with the news director, with the executive producer, with whoever was handling interns long ago. You can't wait, because now it's a wasted experience, right? You spend all that time in an internship, and then you're boo-hooing because you didn't get what you wanted. And it's the same thing with the job. You need to make sure that you have all the resources that will allow you to do your job to the best of your ability. Same with an internship. You are there to learn. People are there to groom you and protect you. And if you are not getting what you feel like you need to get, then you need to have a conversation early on. And you need to say, hey, here's what I want to learn. Here's what I want to do. Here's what I want to, and make sure that you get those opportunities.
Lovely. And now to transition more so into your work with Black Girls Rock, can you tell us about them as a brand and just how the process was for you as a journalist to move up to a board and just in general, like the ladder of climbing in journalism.
Yeah, it was just really just a right place, right time. You know what I mean? It's just, Beverly Bond and I know each other. We go way, way back. Actually, I took the regroup students to a Black Girls Rock event. It was like a fundraising event. I had them working. One of the things that they were doing at that event was volunteering and helping out. And I remember at that event, Beverly was so impressed with the students, and she loved what I was doing with them. And she was like, "You need to be on our board." So it really was just like, it wasn't anything that I was looking to do, but I was, of course, very happy to be invited to be a part of that. Because I love what Beverly does. I love, Black Girls Rock. I love Black Girls Lead. I love what she does to help shape the mind of young Black women around the world. So it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a goal of mine. I think it's important to sit on boards after you kind of get your footing in the business. I definitely wouldn't do it on a first or second job if that's within the first, like, 5 years of your career. I'd wait until after that, until I started really serving on a board. I would do other things, community service related, because I think it's important to have that support of the community as a journalist. So whether you join a local church, whether you are part of a sorority or fraternity, whether you're, whatever you end up doing, make sure that you connect with groups that can support you in case things go left. But yeah, Black Girls Rock, I love them. I love all that they do. It's such an impressive organization, and I love helping them out any way that I can, anytime that I can.
So you had the luxury of working with a radio guru, or can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, you had the luxury of working with a radio guru, Tom Joyner from the Tom Joyner Morning Show. He had to give you some tips or advice for your career and journey. Can you reveal some of the great wisdom he shared with you?
Well, by the time I started working with Tom, I had really been in the business a long time. So I wouldn't say that he had really gave me advice on how to do what I do. And, I'd like to point out there's a big distinction between someone being a media personality, an icon like Tom Joyner is, and someone who is a journalist, right? It's just like the difference between a Wendy Williams doing what she does and what I do. It's two different worlds, very different. And I think a lot of times in the Black community, we confuse that. We think that anybody that has a microphone is a journalist. That is not true. That is not true. Right? Because there's
talk about it.
Yes, because there's special training that we go through as journalists to know how to report news, how to gather information. So some people are just in front of a microphone very effectively, and they're good at what they do, but they are not journalists. So I learned a lot from Tom, but not about my job. You know what I mean? I came to the TJMS knowing what I was doing. You know what I mean? But I did learn a lot from Tom about just working, just kind of building my brand. That's what I learned from Tom, really about, because Tom really built, I mean, he's a legend, and rightfully so. I mean, he earned that. The hardest working man in radio. And he definitely was that. I hated that he left the business. He's very missed, I think, and very necessary what he was doing with his radio show and beyond. You know what I mean? He was very outspoken politically and with so many things. But I learned from him just about building my brand. I watched what he did, from the sky shows to the cruises, to all of the projects that he did with educating people about going to the doctor and building wealth and all of those things. I learned a lot about those things from Tom. Yeah. I love Tom Joyner. I love working with him. And those of us who were part of it, when I was on election night, it was a bunch of us from the Tom Joyner Morning Show. We're all very close, very connected. Tom was supposed to join us, but he did not. But I learned a lot from Tom about just having your own brand and how to build that.
And speaking to brand building, beautiful segues, because the journalists, we're working together.
Yes, I know.
As a journalist, how do you use the ever-changing field of social media to promote your personal brand's work and just brands for other companies? And do you find it hard to keep up with?
Yes, it's very hard. I have a wonderful group of interns that help me with that from time to time. But social media is hard to keep up with. It is a job, right? Coming up with all of that stuff. I wish that I had the time to really engage in social media the way that I want to, but I try to manage my own expectations, and I try to just show up when I can. So I like to use social media to promote the things that I'm doing, particularly with Vegan Sexy Cool, but with the because I am on a mission with that to just really just show people that this whole vegan lifestyle is not as hard as they think, and it's more rewarding than they actually think. But with the Jacque Reid, social media, because I have two, with the Jacque Reid social media, I try to be more of a voice. I try to move out of the journalism lane and move, not, I mean, with the things that I post, what I have learned as a journalist definitely comes into play. You will not find me posting fake news or misinformation. That just stays with you. Those skills as a journalist just stays with you. But I find myself giving more opinion. You know what I mean? I don't hold back on my opinion. The fact that I think Donald Trump is trash. You know what I mean? I don't hold back on saying things like that. I just really try to be more of a personality. Once I left news, right, and started covering entertainment, I moved more into jobs and opportunities that allowed me to share more of my opinion and not remain so objective. And so social media is just an extension of that, because I have a lot to say. And I'm just before, I just tweeted before I came on with you guys that I was furious with CNN for covering in its entirety, from what I saw, that Donald Trump news conference. And so I hashtag CNN, because I was like, that's disgusting as journalists to do that. I didn't say it was disgusting, but I said it was irresponsible, and it was. So I like to use social media to not just express myself, but also to educate people, right? I like for people to understand things a little bit more. And it's a community to me too. I watch a lot of TV just because of what I do with my show, New York Live. I watch a lot of movies and things like that. And so I talk about the things that I watch, whether I like things, so it's a way to connect with people. And just keep up with what's going on. I look to social media for that. So I think it's an important part of what we do as journalists, and beyond. It's an important place for information, but I think you have to be careful, especially when you consider yourself a journalist like I do, of putting out misinformation, because I think people look to you to give facts and to tell the truth. But I think that social media can't be your real estate, your idea of real estate, of where you exist. And what I mean by that is, I think you need something that you own. Instagram can disappear tomorrow. Twitter can go away tomorrow. Facebook too. YouTube, your own podcast. I mean, I think having those things are the most important pieces of real estate. Even if you work for, mainstream media, or work for a Black media company, if you get a job somewhere else, I think it's important to have your own voice in some way that can't be erased.
So another perfect segue there. Let's get into your vegan lifestyle brand, Vegan Sexy Cool. Can you talk about your journey into veganism and what inspired you to create the Vegan Sexy Cool brand?
Well, I'm an ethical vegan. And that means that I don't been an animal lover. But once I let myself do the research and really find out what was going on and the harm that was coming to so many animals so that I could have a burger, so I could wear some leather boots, so I could have leather interior in my car, so I could have some ice cream, all those things for me to have those simple pleasures. It just did not sit well with me. And when I really watched and did some, videos and and dug into what was out there, I just quit cold turkey because I realized that by going vegan, I could save 200 animals a year from slaughter and death, right? So I said, wow, that means a lot to me as an animal lover. And so then I became vegan. And at first, it was difficult because I went cold turkey. People will tell you when you go vegan to, maybe give up chicken and then next month give up mayonnaise, like do it slowly. No, I just went all in because I just couldn't be a part of it anymore. And I don't regret that. But it was hard just kind of learning how to eat, just kind of retraining your brain because you're used to having a meat and two sides, right? you're just used to having meat on your plate. So I had to really, I should have done the homework first. But I'm glad that I started when I started. And I would suggest that anyone who wants to do it, just kind of do a little bit of homework about how you're going to eat because you will become frustrated. You need to learn about, vitamins that you may need to take if you don't know how to get those nutrients in your food. There are some people that are nutritionists, so they know what to eat, right? I didn't know how to eat to get B12 and all those kinds of things. So I take, supplements, I take vitamins. And that's important to know. Like, but those were things that I didn't know going in. I just was like, I'm just becoming vegan. But not only did but eventually, and you'll carb overload, right? You'll be like, you'll go to a restaurant and they won't have anything vegan. You'll be like, oh, bring me fries, or oh, bring me, some potato chips, or, you'll lean into snacks and things like that that are vegan. And I didn't want to do that. So once I did my homework and really just kind of retrained my brain and learned how to get the protein that I needed from plants, which you can't get protein from plants. You don't have to get it from animals. Then I was good. I was good. And with me, it wasn't just food, as I said, it was everything. So I stopped buying leather, and suede and other animal products across the board, beauty products, which, for Black women, particularly with the products that we put in our hair and on our skin, there's so many toxins that we put into our bodies, and we just don't pay enough attention to it. And I wish that I had paid attention to those things when I was much younger, because you just think you're going to live forever. You think your skin is going to be the way that it is forever. You just think, you're just going to be how you are forever, and you're not. And veganism is a way to not just live better. It's a way to live longer. It's a way to live healthier. One of the things that happened for me, because I did it for animals, I didn't do it for health, but I was having some issues with my knee because I'm a runner. And I got to the point where I couldn't run anymore. And even going up and down stairs, wearing high heels, getting in and out of the car, it was bothering me. And once I went vegan and I went to the doctor, did physical therapy, and it got better, but it never went away. And I really said to myself, you know what? I guess I'm going to just have to have this chronic issue. And for those of you, whose parents, are dealing with these kinds of issues, and you want your parents and grandparents and people like that to be around longer, you want them to get off of, their diabetes medication or heart disease medication, all those kind of things, changing their diets will do that. Changing their diets will do that. And if you start now, as you get older, you will live a longer and healthier life without ailments when you get older. I realized that I did not want to be an older woman, walking, knees hurting, back hurting, this hurt, aches. And there's so many of my friends who will say to me, oh, this hurts. Oh, but and it's just life. And I'm just like, but it doesn't have to be your life. You can give up dairy and the inflammation will go away. It doesn't have to be your life. So with Vegan Sexy Cool, I realized, because people were always asking me, you know, what made you go vegan? What do you eat? People were always asking me. So I said, there's this need for information. And then I said, you know, with Vegan Sexy Cool, I realized that it was a way to kind of lean into three things by going vegan, right? Most people want to look their best and feel their best. They want to be healthy, they want to look good, you know what I mean? Whether it's your beauty products, whether it's your skin, whether it's your physique, you want to look and feel good, right? You want to be healthy and you want to look good. And people also want to live a certain lifestyle, right? You want to go to a great restaurant and hang out with your friends. You want to go to brunch. You want to, be out and with your friends, or hanging out at a barbecue and drinking this kind of liquor if you drink, and just having, you want to go to this vacation spot and be on the beach. You want to live your best life. And then people also want to give back in some kind of way. People want to give back. They want to make the world a better place, whether you volunteer with a youth organization, whether you're a part of a fraternity or a sorority and you do, social work within the community, whether or not you give money at church, so that they can do what you want to give back. Well, being vegan, right? And Vegan Sexy Cool gives you all of that. I'm going to tell you where you can find some fly shoes and some, fabulous vegan leather, so you can look the way that you want to look, right? I'm going to tell you restaurants that you can go to and food that you can cook, so you won't feel like you're sacrificing. And then by being vegan, what are you doing? You're saving the planet. You're saving animals. So you're doing good things. So that's Vegan Sexy Cool. It's like the 3-in-1. You get everything you're looking for all in one.
There are some vegan questions that just popped in the chat, so we're going to jump to those real quick.
Okay.
Kenyatta Coleman asks, what are some of your favorite vegan meals?
That's a long, long, long question. Okay. One thing that I cook all the time is this vegan chili that I make. That is amazing. The recipe is on vegansexycool.com. I just made some collard greens the other weekend. And when I tell you, I have perfected my doctoring of the collard greens so that they taste like I cooked them in meat, but I did not. They are so good. I mean, even it just tastes like I put some meat in there, but I didn't. But I worked out my own doctoring for that. I haven't posted that on vegansexycool.com, but I will. I love vegan pizza. Miyoko's is my favorite cheese. This morning, I'll tell you what I had this morning. I had a Beyond sausage patty. They make the best sausage patties. And I had some Just Egg, and I put some pepper jack vegan cheese in it, and in the egg, and I scrambled that up, and I made me a little breakfast sandwich that will rival any breakfast sandwich out there on the market. It was so good. So I love my, Beyond Meats and things like that. I don't overdo it with the processed food. Like last night I had for dinner, I made this ginger and garlic vegetable rice stir fry with like green beans and scallions and green onions and some other things and tomatoes. And then I topped it with this roasted cauliflower and cashews. And I took the cauliflower and the cashews and put it in a sauce and then put it on top of rice. It was amazing. I eat, I was on the doctors recently, and I made this linguine with Alfredo sauce and topped it with tofu, which you could not make me eat tofu before I became vegan. But now, once you learn how to cook it, it is amazing. Chickpeas. You would not catch me eating chickpeas before I became vegan. I cannot get enough of them. I love roasting chickpeas in the oven. Put a little bit of olive oil on them, put them in the oven with some salt and pepper, and to put some hot sauce on them. So good. So delicious. God, I could go on and on. I love vegan food. There's so much great. People feel like you're eating rabbit food, and you're not. Anything you love as a non-vegan, as a carnivore, you can find a vegan version of it, a great vegan version of it. Whether it's a recipe online or a restaurant that you go to. So I just, I eat everything. Vegan meatloaf, vegan. I said pizza, lasagna. I don't know if I said that. Just all kinds of everything you can think of. There's a vegan version of it, and a delicious vegan version of it.
So Miranda Perez wants to know, did you find it hard culturally to transition into veganism?
No, you mean because I'm Black? Culturally? No. There's vegan
Like
soul food
making like
everywhere.
foods, because I be talking to people about it, and it's like, how are we gonna get the same flavors?
Did you
Or
not
like a
hear what I said
Thanksgiving.
about the greens?
Yeah, I heard you. That's what I'm saying. So I'm like, maybe not. But I asked that question before. You said it.
I just put a vegan black eyed peas recipe on. Okay, it's getting close with Biden in Pennsylvania. I'm sorry. It's like neck and neck. It's so close. Okay. Anyway, I just put a recipe for vegan Southern black eyed peas, vegan on my website, vegan cornbread. I'm putting vegan mashed potatoes up tonight. And these are from Black vegan chefs. Every day for the month of November, which is World Vegan Month, I am posting a new holiday recipe on the website every day. So by the time Thanksgiving comes around, you'll have so much to choose from the vegan community. And these are Black chefs. You think they don't know how to make good Black vegan mac and cheese? You think they don't know how to do that? Of course they do. That's why I chose them. Because I know what I want on my table. The cornbread stuffing that they're going to recommend. Come on. No, I give up nothing culturally. I love soul food. I'm from Atlanta. I'm a Southern girl. I love soul food. And when I tell you for Christmas and Thanksgiving, I cook a complete, well, Thanksgiving, I usually go to my cousin's house in Philly, Kelly. Shout out to Kelly, who can just really cook great vegan food. Thank God she cooks a little bit of vegan food for me when I come up there, and she's a great cook. So she makes delicious things for me. But no, I don't give up anything. Anything that you want that's, of soul food or Caribbean food or African food, you can find. There are vegan African chefs out there, vegan Caribbean chefs, anything. There's a woman in Brooklyn that makes, what does she make? Oxtails, vegan oxtails. When I tell you it's a line around the block to get into her food is so good. The cabbage that she makes it with, and the rice and the gravy that she puts on the oxtails. She does this vegan fried shrimp. It's crazy. Her food is amazing. And she's vegan. No, you're not going to miss anything. Biscuits, whatever you want, it exists.
So Asia Battles asks, do you think that vegan lifestyle is healthier than keto?
Yes, I do. Because veganism is not a fad diet, right? With keto, you're still eating meat. Let's talk about not only just meat just being unhealthy for you in general, even with chicken, right? It's just as unhealthy as the beef. Do the research on your own. Clogging your arteries, the fat that you're going to get, it's just not healthy for you. There's also what they put in the meats, the hormones and the antibiotics that they're feeding the animals, and all these things that they're going on to make the animals bigger, right? And to make this so the meat can be better. No, it's not as healthy because of all the toxins and chemicals that you're putting in your body when you eat that meat. I was interviewing somebody the other day, and they were talking about how he worked at this chicken factory, and he was saying that there would be chickens that were dead, that they would just pluck them and put them, package them. There were chickens with cancer that they would just cut that off and package it up. You would never know. So what's happening in these meat factories? You don't even know, but you just got to have those wings. No, you can make some cauliflower wings or some seitan wings and be just as satisfied. It's all about the flavor. And if you know how to cook, or you go to someone who knows how to cook, you're not going to miss the flavor or the crunch or the seasoning, all of that. So what we doing? We dying over some chicken wings? We dying over some pig's feet? I mean, really? Is it, no. You can find great food out there that's vegan.
And one more question about veganism. So what are some of the misconceptions about veganism?
That it's just for white people. Black people have been vegans even back to the continent of Africa. A lot of us, a lot of our ancestors from there, and even to this day, did not eat a lot of meat. It was considered a special thing to eat meat, and it was rare. And a lot of reasons why there are certain communities in Africa that eat meat now is because they adopted that from Western culture, from us, right? That's an American thing. It really, really is. There's this misconception that you're going to be hungry all the time. That is just not true. I eat way too much. I'm always stuffed. I mean, it's ridiculous. My appetite, I have a ferocious appetite, and I'm always hungry and I'm always satisfied. My boyfriend is an ex-football player. He's 6'5". He is now vegan. He doesn't like to say he's vegan, but he's vegan. And listen, I cook for him and he loves it. And he's never like, oh, I'm hungry, like an hour later. It's not like that. And there's this misconception that veganism is like this cult, that, we're just a bunch of crazy people that just, no, it's not this extreme thing. We just love animals, or we want to be healthier. What's so crazy about not wanting to harm another living thing? It's just unnecessary the way that they kill animals the way that they do. And Dick Gregory, who you all know of, and if you don't, look him up, he was he was a long time vegan. I shouldn't say lifelong, but when he came to him, he was a vegan for many years. Coretta Scott King, Rosa Parks. So many people were vegans because of the cruelty, and because of the cruelty as Black people that we have suffered in this country. For a lot of us, I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to be a part of that cruelty. And so, that's a misconception that vegans are just these crazy, extreme people. Nothing could be further from the truth. And that it's expensive to eat vegan. That is not true. Fruits, vegetables, grains. Get some rice, get some beans, get some cabbage, get some, you know what I mean? Now, if you're buying the processed things, if you're buying the Beyond Meats and the Impossible Meat, that stuff is expensive. But consider when you go to the grocery store that you are not buying meat, which is typically the most expensive thing on your grocery list. Take that off, right? And all that money can go towards other things that could go into your vegan diet.
Last question before we let you go. I know the election is very important, and someone who is covering the election, your play cousin Jacque Reid of MSNBC,
Yes.
Talk to us about how did you meet your play cousin, the importance of networking, how did you guys' relationship grow into what it is today?
Oh my God, we are just the dearest friends. I actually met Joy-Ann. I kind of knew about her. She was the managing editor at the Griot when I started my the Read Group program with the Clark students. And so I went to her because we just kind of knew each other in passing, but I went to her and I was like, listen, I have these students and I need like about 5 of them to have an internship here in the building at NBC. She was like, I got you. She gave them all internships at the Griot. And she loved the interns that she had. She thought that they were incredible. And our friendship just began from there. I mean, that was like the seed was planted. And then the more that we were interact because of the students, we realized we had so much in common and we would commiserate. One of the things that we realized was that in the building at NBC, even though she's over at MSNBC and I'm at WNBC at my show, hair and makeup is kind of like all on the same floor. We all kind of use the same people. And we realized that there were not enough qualified people to do Black hair. And that's when Tamron was still there too, Tamron Hall. And so Tamron and Joy-Ann and I got together and went to see someone in management to say, this needs to change. I mean, when Tamron was there, from what I understand, she didn't let anybody, she came in and did her own hair. And there were moments when I would do that, where I would just do my own hair depending on who was in the room. So we bonded over things like that. And then, just over time we would see each other. I'd go hang out in her office and, we'd go eat together and go hang out together. And we just realized we just had so much in common. Her daughter, dog sits for me. And it was just this friendship that grew. And then we thought we should do something together, right? We should just do something together because we had so much fun together. And we thought about doing a TV show, and I had to talk Joanne out of that. I was like, no, we need to do a podcast. And she's like, nah, I don't want to do a podcast. She thought podcasts were like, nobody's doing podcasts. And now everybody's doing podcasts. So we ended up doing our podcast together. And, but the great thing is that we had this friendship before. And so it's even grown more since then. But yeah, we met basically with, because of those students at Clark and her giving them internships. That's how it really, really started.
I know your time is very valuable. There are about 3 more questions in the chat if you have.
That's okay.
Okay.
Because I'm just watching the election out of the corner of my eye, so I'm good. I don't mind.
Okay, awesome. So Talon wants to know if you have any vegan dessert suggestions.
Yes. Now, I am not a big dessert person. Let me say that. There are certain sweets that I like, but there is a company called Greyston, Greyston. I recently did a podcast episode with the CEO. They have a whole bunch of bakeries. They have a bakery here in New York. I think they're actually in the Bronx, but they have a bakery in the Bronx, and they make all these treats that you can order online if you don't go to the actual bakery. But they have about 5 or 6 vegan things. One of my favorite things that they have is this vegan fudge brownie. They sell it at Whole Foods, or you can get it online. It is one of the most amazing things I have ever tasted. There's a lot of vegan ice cream out there that you can find in grocery stores. I'm not a big sweets person, so I don't eat a lot of sweets. That brownie is like one of the only things that's vegan that I eat. I'm going to try my hand at a vegan pound cake this month, because pound cake is one of my favorite things, and I have not had a vegan pound cake yet, but I will be making one soon. I used to make one when I, did eat dairy, and it was pretty good. So now I'm going to figure out how to make a vegan pound cake. But yeah, any dessert that you want, there's a vegan version of it. Key lime pie, cheesecake, all that kind of stuff. I don't eat a lot of desserts. I'm a savory person. So I want food, and then I'm full. I don't have to, I might eat fruit or something like that. I'm boring in the dessert department. I'm sorry.
Saren Lloyd wanted to know, how are you feeling? I know you touched upon this a little bit earlier, but she wanted to know how you're feeling about the coverage of the election. Do you think that all the news cycles are being non-biased?
I don't watch Fox because that's a waste of time. I think so. I think actually, let me say this. Before this election, I fought journalists for trying too hard because Trump was such a mess, right? And covering him, you have to cover him so aggressively because he's just lying and lying and lying and lying. So you have to push and be aggressive. I think that there was this need to be just as aggressive with Biden and with Kamala, right? So that you didn't look like you were favoring them over Trump. That bothered me. And I too think that running a press conference with Trump, just because you would run a press conference for Biden and Trump is up there lying and he's lying and needs to be fact checked, then I have a problem with that. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that they tried really hard to be fair. But, Trump is just a different animal. Covering him, I wish that they were more aggressive in the way that they covered him, actually, because it's not even about him being a Republican. It's about him being this despicable person who does not respect the presidency or himself. So why should we respect him? I would never call him president. I would always call him Trump with a lowercase t, because I have no respect for him, and he has no respect for himself nor the office of the presidency. So I don't respect him. So yeah, I think the coverage was decent. I did watch a lot of it. I think it was decent. I felt that the debates were a hot mess. I felt like the moderators should have been fact checking in real time and not just giving Donald Trump an opportunity to just say whatever and then just say, okay, and just move on to the next thing. I don't think that that was right. And I do think that the debate commission should have stepped in a better way to control what Trump did in that first debate. That was a disaster. That was a shit show. It really, really was. It was, but I think overall the media is learning. They helped create this monster, 4 years ago. And now they're just learning how to cover him the right way. But with what happened with CNN, I'm just disgusted about that, clearly, because I keep talking about it.
And lastly, Kenyatta Coleman asked, knowing all what you know now, what advice would you give to your younger self personally and professionally?
Oh, God. Whew. What would I give my younger self personally? My younger self personally, I would say, don't put so much emphasis on getting married and having children, because it's not something that you have to do. If you want to do it, if it comes to you, do it, but don't make that goals. And I wish that I had known that sooner. I mean, I'm not married. I've never been married, and I don't have children. And there was a moment in my life where I was so consumed with achieving those things that I made bad choices when it came to dating. And I just made bad choices when I came to my career. I mean, when I was in Kentucky, I got engaged to a gentleman because I didn't really want to get engaged to him, but I felt like, you know what? Supposed to get married. I need to kind of have this personal life. But there was a part of me that I didn't want to work in Lexington, Kentucky for the rest of my life. I just didn't. Nothing wrong with the people who made that choice, but I didn't. You know what I mean? I wanted my first month on the job, I went to an NABJ convention. My first job in Brunswick, Georgia, I went to NABJ in St. Louis, and I walked right into the ABC News table. And I said, I want to work here. How do I figure out how to work here? The lady was like, well, how long have you been working? I said, a month. And she was like, give it more time. So I knew I wanted to get to a certain level in my career out the gate, right? So I didn't want to get married and have kids, but because I felt like that was what I was supposed to do, I ended up getting engaged, and I was like, okay, well, my next job could be in Cincinnati since that's nearby, or Louisville because that's nearby, and and then I'll just kind of see. Fortunately, that relationship did not work out, and I got a job in Houston, Texas, and that was a big jump. And so that was great, but it's not that I necessarily didn't want those things. I just felt like I shouldn't beat myself up or throw myself off track because I don't have those things. For women that feel like they want to get married and they want to have kids, do that. I mean, I did want to have kids. I never got to a point where I did not want to have kids. I had to make peace with the fact that I was not going to have kids unless, I went to a sperm donor or went half on a baby with a friend, or all the things which I considered. I even asked a friend of mine, do you want to have a baby together? Because I was getting up there in age. And then it just becomes, it's like, and I thought about it and I was like, I don't want to raise a kid on my own by choice. I don't want to do that. It's expensive. It's hard. Being a parent is hard. And so I decided, let me stop pursuing this. And I made peace with that. Will I get married? I don't know. I might. I'm open to it. I can't say that I'm against marriage or anything like that. I just don't have to do it. It's just not something, whereas back there when I was engaged, I felt like this is what I'm supposed to do. And so I wish that I had known that I had choices. Even if you want to get married, right? even if you want to have children, you have to wait for the right moments, right? You can't just say, I'm this age, so let me have a baby. Or I'm this age and he's here, so let me marry him. Or if I don't, as a friend of mine said years ago, she felt like if she didn't marry this guy that she was seeing like in this moment, because myself and some other friends felt like other things going on in her life, it wasn't the right time for her to get married. And she was like, well, if I don't marry him now, he may not marry me. Then don't get married. You know what I mean? Then don't get married. Women have to realize that you can be fulfilled without those things, because let's say you want to become a mother, but let's say you have fertility issues and you can't. Then what? Let's say you want to get married, but you never meet that person. Then what? Are you going to feel like a failure? Are you just going to marry somebody for the sake of getting married? There's nothing wrong with having those goals and doing those things, but I think that you have to remember that if those things don't happen, it's okay. It's okay. You know what I mean? It is okay. And I wish that I had known that sooner. I mean, I used to sit up in church on Mother's Day and just cry because I just want to be a mother so bad, right? And now, if I had a child right now, I don't know how I would keep myself together. God knew what he was doing. I was not meant to be a mother. I mean, it just was not meant to be. I can barely take care of myself. You know what I mean? So it's like, I can barely take care of my 2 dogs and me. It's like, and a kid? Oh, it's a lot of work. You know, and that's why there are so many children that are being abused, and mothers that are, forgive me for saying this, but throwing babies out of windows and things like that, because everybody is not meant to be a mother. And I think that we need to say to more women that, listen, this is not something that you have to do. It's okay. You don't have to do it. Take that off your plate. Because there are a lot of people that don't want to be, but feel the pressure to be. And not everybody is cut out to be a mother or a wife. And I wish that someone had told me that it was okay, because it distracted me in so many ways, and it took up so much space mentally. You know, it made me sad at times that I didn't have those things. And I dated some men that I just should not have dated because I was trying to get married, or I was trying to get to the point where I could get married and have a baby. You know what I mean? It was just like, oh my God, it's just this franticness. And I'm glad that I had this aha moment in time to get off that crazy train and say, you know what, this may not happen for me, and that's okay. But I wish that I had known that much younger. And that's the biggest thing in my personal life that I wish that I had known. Professionally, I wish that I had networked better, and I wish that I had really trained myself to network better. I have met and worked with and just connected with some amazing people over the years. And so I wish that I had said to myself from day one, meet somebody, get their information, put it in a contact list. Not just that, at least once a year, maybe twice a year, reach out to that person, nurture that relationship. You know what I mean? Networking is like, will take you further than talent. You know what I mean? You gotta have some talent, but it will definitely you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have people to call to say, hey, can you help me out? Can you give me some advice? I'm thinking about this. I need that. I still call upon people, friends that I know, for help on things. I wish that I had been better about not just keeping people's information, but about keeping in contact with them and nurturing those relationships. It's important. Relationships are the key to this business and any business. If you want to be successful, relationships will take you so far, so far. So that's the thing that professionally I wish that I had known.
Wow, thank you. That was so amazing. There's a lot of people in the chat talking about your transparency and thanking you for being so transparent with that.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yes. One last question from our managing editor over here. Miranda, do you want to ask it?
Yes, actually, I'll just ask it out loud. So when you're talking about nurturing those relationships, what are your best methods or things that you found that work well to maintain the relationship but not like overstep personal like and professional boundaries and not also seem like a budding journalist like bug um like authentically maintaining a relationship tips?
Yeah. Be authentic. Be yourself. Um, Start when you're young, because when you're a student, people love helping students. Use that to your advantage. Call anybody and everybody you're thinking about calling or talking to. You want to talk to them. I'm a student. Do you mind talking to me about, like, start now, as a student, and whatever happens, right? Don't take it personally. People that you admire and respect and want help from, they are people too. They're dealing with a pandemic. They may be dealing with issues with their family, their relationships, their jobs, their mental health, their physical health, all kinds of things. You have to realize that people are people. Um, and so don't take it personally, and don't take no for an answer. It's like, you know, um, if you're a sensible person, if somebody calls me and I don't call them back, and then they call me the next day and I don't call them back, and then so they call me the next day, and don't be that person. But just, reach out, like I said, on a regular basis, and do it in authentic ways. Like, I was on the Doctors recently, and even if you didn't see me on the Doctors, but you saw me post it, right, and you went and watched it, hey, saw you on the Doctors, wanted to say you did a great job. I didn't know, and try to find an opening for a conversation. Not just that, but I didn't know you knew how to cook so well. Do you enjoy cooking? You know what I mean? Or I'd love to, or I wrote some articles about food. You ever have time to read through some of my articles? Or I did a story on this. Do you have time to look at this or that? And they may say yes, but they may say no, right? And if they say no, I understand. I appreciate it. 6 months later, hit them up again. I appreciate someone who's persistent and who doesn't take things personally, because the last thing I want to feel is guilty. I'm not even okay. I don't, I don't even want to deal with that. Because I like to help students. I like to help people. I love to give advice and do, because I want everybody to win. I want everybody to win. I really, really do. So, but everybody's not like me. Some people are, some people aren't, but most people want to help students. So start young. And then as you get into your careers, as you get into your jobs, nurture those relationships. Keep in touch with people. Find out when their birthdays are. Send them a Christmas card. Be consistent with it. And reach out to them when they have milestones, not just in their lives, but when things happen in their careers. You know what I mean? Reach out. Hey, I don't know if you remember me, blah, 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 blah. Just wanted to let you know. And at some point, you'll see that this person will respond to you. And then you got a relationship, right? If that person's in town, make your way to go and see them. You know what I mean? Or try to. If they say no, okay, but you're trying, right? You're trying. And always ask for advice and feedback. Don't bug them. But remember that they are real people, and most people really want to help students, and they want to help young people along the way. And after you've been in the business, for a while, then you kind of become colleagues, right? So it's different, but it's like, you just want to make sure that you have a strong contact list that's very organized. You need to have a whole separate planner for this, because as you meet people, you want them to go in there, and you have to just kind of like, okay, here's their email address, here's their contact information. Okay, I kept up with this person. I sent them a Christmas card. I did this. I sent them something for their birthday, or I just sent an email. Listen, don't bog yourself down with having to do too much. An email for Christmas is just, I'm not a big fan of Christmas cards. An email, for Christmas is just fine. A text, you know what I mean? Just those things, just kind of like, I like to say, you keep people warm. Just kind of let them know, just kind of nudge them every once in a while and let them know that you're going to send them your work and ask for feedback, things like that. And eventually you'll see that person will remember you and will respond to you And then they'll see you somewhere and they're reaching out to you and saying, hello to you. And hey, there's this job at my station or at my newspaper, or at my magazine, and I thought of you. That's what happens. That's what happens. Or you can call that person and say, hey, I just lost a job or just graduated. I'm looking for a job. Do you know about anything? And a lot of times jobs and opportunities are word of mouth.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Before we end, I just want to make a quick announcement. Miss Reid will be back here. Well, not here in this space, but on a different Zoom, November 9th at 7:08. It is an event called Enhancing the HBCU Experience, hosted by the Alpha Kappa Alpha chapter at Clark Atlanta University. So please tune into that as well.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I want to thank you again so much for joining us and just taking the time out to speak with us today. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I really am.
Thank you.
I'm happy to do it. And I hope that I was helpful in what I had to say. Hope
Yes.
you guys,
Absolutely.
took a lot away from it. And, listen, I love CAU. I want all the students to just leave there and just be very successful in whatever way you want to, professionally and personally.
Mhm.
And so hopefully something that I said here today will help you with that.
Yes.
Definitely. It was inspiring.
Yeah. And Miss Freeman was in the chat like, hello. So she's here.
Yeah.
Oh, is
Miss
she?
Freeman was like,
She's in the
Hey, girl.
chat.
hey, girl. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just thankful for that. So that concludes this session tonight. And I'm just thank you guys for joining us tonight.
Thank you guys for having me. This was great. You guys did a great job. Great questions. And
Thank
everything.
you.
Really well organized.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Alrighty. So whenever you guys are ready, you guys can leave. And yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.